Hello and welcome, I am Toby Jones, and this is Toby Jones Talks Music. Today is all about the metal gods Judas Priest, as I have on my t-shirt, if you're watching, not listening on Spotify. Today's video, most specifically, is about their 1988 album, Ram It Down, but we are going to be discussing the Judas Priest catalogue, how I came to discover Judas Priest, my journey through these albums, and how Ram It Down really fits into all of that. And the key thing about this video is what's made me go back and look at Ram It Down over the last week. Has my opinion changed about this album? Is it an underrated masterpiece? Is it a complete dud? Well, over the next 20 odd minutes, you'll be sure to find out if you stick around. So let's get straight into it, shall we? So let's talk about my journey with Judas Priest, a band that I am very, very fond of. And that journey really started in earnest over the COVID lockdown period and listening to this album for the first time, which was then and still is my favourite Priest album, Stained Glass, particularly my favourite Priest song, Beyond the Realms of Death. That is an absolute killer track. The last minute, that guitar solo, it's absolute perfection. But on this album, there are some awesome tracks. It's really solid throughout, but the highlights, I would say, are Beyond the Realms of Death, the first track, Exciter, the title track, Stained Glass, and probably Saints in Hell. This is a very, very strong Priest album, but I do enjoy the albums in and around this period. Sad Wings of Destiny is one that I'm still getting to grips with. I love Victim of Changes. The Ripper's great. I really like side one, actually, of this album. So Victim of Changes, The Ripper, Dreamer Deceiver, and then going on to Deceiver. But side two, I'm still trying a little bit to get to grips with. I'm not 100% on that one yet, funnily enough. If my dad's watching, this is my dad's favourite Priest album. Sin After Sin, my second favourite Priest album. This is excellent as well. Really, really good. I really like the cover, Diamonds and Rust, although I probably prefer the version of that on Unleashed in the East. Sinner is brilliant, Starbreaker, excellent. Side 2 is really good as well. I talked about Stained Glass. Killing Machine starts to go a little bit more on the commercial side, but there's some great stuff on here. One of my favourites, actually, which you might be a little bit surprised at, is the ballad Before the Dawn. I think that's beautiful. I really like the cover of the Green Man Alicia with the two-pronged crown. This is a good album. Not as consistent as the ones that came before it, but still a very solid album. Of course, you've got the live album, Unleashed in the East. And then the last album from the Priests of a consistent run that I really enjoy is this one, British Steel. Really, really good album. Yeah, it is. It's really, really good. I've kind of sniffed on this the last couple of years by going, well, it's got Breaking the Law and Living After Midnight on it. You know what? I really still like get it right. I really still like Breaking the Law. I'm not really a fan of Living After Midnight. It's a little bit too commercial and doesn't do a lot for me. But the rest of this record, maybe apart from United, but I can see the charm of that, is really, really good. I might be a little bit different, though, to those in this YouTube community, at least, that I've listened to, because I'm not a huge fan of 1980s Judas Priest. Now, correct me if I'm wrong down in the comments, but this album, Screaming for Vengeance, seems to be a favourite of a lot of other people that I hear talking about Judas Priest on YouTube. It ain't one of mine. I just can't really get to grips with this album. I really like You've Got Another Thing Coming. That was one of the songs that I knew before I really got into Judas Priest's albums. Before I listened to Stained Glass and went through these albums, I probably knew 20 odd Priest songs, so I had a decent background to this group before going on and listening to it. I really like the introduction to this album with the Helion or the Hellion and then Electric Eye. But I actually like the first track, I think, is it the Hellion? Whatever it is, the first track. Actually more than I like Electric Eye. I'm not a fan of Riding on the Wind, and I've tried with this album. I will keep trying because clearly there's something here because there are other people who enjoy it. But for me, I'm not a great fan. Defenders of the Faith, well, the one album that I've completely skipped here is Point of Entry. That's one that I've got to really go and re-listen to. And before I go any further forward, the reason I've got to go and re-listen to these albums is that I really liked the 70s stuff, and for those of you who might be new around here, I have told this story a couple of times in the past, but when we bought my dad, me and my sister bought my dad a record player about 7 or 8 years ago now. He had some of his vinyl down his shed, which he kept, about 50 or 60 albums. So in that was Sad Wings of Destiny, Stained Class, Killing Machine, and British Steel, at least from a Judas Priest point of view. And I think Unleashed in the East as well. So I kind of knew those albums to an extent. But it wasn't until I went and splurged out on this, the Complete Albums Collection, the Sony Music released the box set from 2011, which has got all of the Priest albums to date, apart from the two Tim Ripper Owens albums, Demolition and Jugulator, that I really started to go through this catalogue seriously. The problem that I had with this catalogue, and it was very much a self-induced problem, is that I went to listen to these all and kind of just played it once, moved on to the next one, played the next album once and moved on to the next one. That's totally different to my philosophy now. I'll go and listen to something 4, 5, even 6 times. Doesn't matter how many listens it takes, as long as I know the tracks that are on it. I look at Screaming for Vengeance now, and I couldn't tell you where half these songs go, and that's a real problem, at least with a catalogue like Bruce Springsteen's that I went through last year. Even the albums that I'm not a massive fan of, at least I can tell you how all the songs go. So I've given the songs a chance. They're implanted in my brain. I can say why I don't do or don't like them. With this, I just remember I wasn't a fan, and I have revisited it. Screaming for Vengeance, that is, because I do appreciate that some people listen to this rather than just watching the video and looking at the props. But Screaming for Vengeance was one that I have revisited a little bit, but probably individual tracks and not the whole album. So there are some things on this I'm going, I couldn't really tell you how this goes. And that was the problem with Priest, that Point of Entry was one that I couldn't really tell you a lot about this. I remember that listening to other YouTube people, I think Desert Plains is one that's meant to be quite good on this album. I like Heading Out to the Highway. I like that one, and yeah, that's pretty much all I could say I like about this album. And this is a theme with Ram It Down that I'm going to discuss as well. Like you'd have seen on all of the covers beforehand, this is the first cover that's quite bland. There's not a lot to it. There isn't really that identity. With Screaming for Vengeance, you've got a clear identity. Defenders of the Faith. Now this was a interesting one when I first listened to this, because at the time, I think Free Will Burning was probably the heaviest song that I'd heard up to that point. It's close. Probably the heaviest thing I'd heard up to that point, and I thought, if this album's going to be all like Free Will Burning, then I'm not going to be so keen. But I like this. I like Defenders of the Faith, but certainly not close to the extent that I like anything in the 70s. And then you've got Turbo. And this actually was planned originally as a video to be a bit of a double header, to talk about Turbo and then Ram It Down. And that's how this all started, with me going to rediscover Ram It Down over the last week. I just had an inkling to go and play this. Just had an itch to think, yeah, I want to go and play Turbo. And I really like Turbo. Really, really like Turbo. From the first time I heard it, I think the title track, Turbo Lover, is an excellent, excellent anthem. It builds up slowly. The chorus is catchy as hell. The guitars sound great. I just think it's absolutely awesome. I'd probably go as far to say, post British Steel, it's probably my favourite Priest song of the 80s. But this is really, really good. It has its critique, of course it does. There are a lot of people who didn't like this because this was very far removed from what Priest were doing in the 80s. It's synth driven, it's very different. But I, for one, really, really like it. And of course, these two albums, Turbo and Ram It Down, are very closely linked, because the idea originally was for this to be a double album project called Twin Turbos, where you'd have the more synth-heavy stuff on one album, which turned out to be Turbo, and then the heavier stuff on the other side of the album, or in this case now the second album, which turned into Ram It Down in 1988. And here's when I'm going to talk about the first problem with Ram It Down. I've talked about all of the albums before. Even Turbo has got a clear identity to this. I love the album cover for Turbo. You know what the identity of that is straight away. Even as close with the kind of red fingernails, the painted fingernails. I really like Turbo. Really, really like it. Ram It Down. Where's the identity in that cover? There doesn't seem to be any for me. And that carries into the record. You could actually probably say the same about the live album cover. Very, very sort of cardboardy and nondescript. I mean, there was a clear return to form with the album covers and the identity with Painkiller. And I like this more and more as I listen to it, by the way. The title track, I love A Touch of Evil, Between the Hammer and the Anvil. Like this album. Don't love it yet. There's time. There's time for me to go and love it. But let's talk about Ram It Down then, because... dear. It hasn't happened for me over the last week, unfortunately. I listened to Turbo first off, getting back to the story a little bit. And I kind of thought, yeah, I could maybe do a YouTube video discussing Turbo, but wouldn't it be cool to maybe do a bit of a double header? I already know I like Turbo, my opinion hasn't changed on that, so let's see if I can change my mind on Ram It Down, and because I wanted to change my mind on Ram It Down, or at least give it a reappraisal, it might mean that I still don't feel all that positive about it, but because I had maybe only listened to it once or twice when I first listened to the album, then I thought, well, yeah, maybe it is time to go and listen to this again, give it a reappraisal, and I'm surprised how much I remember, particularly from side 1 of this album. Side 2 was a bit of a kind of distant memory, I didn't remember a lot of it, but the first half of this album I did remember quite well. And there are 10 tracks on this album, so you've got the title track Ram It Down, Heavy Metal, Love Zone, Come and Get It, Hard as Iron, and then I would guess on side 2 of the vinyl would probably be Blood Red Skies, I'm a Rocker, Johnny Be Good, Love You to Death, and Monsters of Rock. And one small detail which I'm going to discuss before we talk about the songs on this album. What is it with the bonus tracks on this remasters? It's the same on the... So I think these are pretty much the same. I think they are the 2001 remasters. These are obviously from this set, which they're just like, you know, kind of cardboard packs. But I think they're the same as the 2001 remasters, which have got the remasters down the side. And they've got random bonus tracks. So, for instance, on Ram It Down, you've got Night Comes Down Live, which is from Defenders of the Faith, and Bloodstone Live, which is from Screaming for Vengeance. Turbo has got All Fired Up, which I think was recorded at some point, might have been in the Turbo sessions, I'm not sure. And to be fair, this is actually a better example because it's got Locked In Live. But let's go back to... maybe it might just be a kind of Ram It Down thing, maybe, because some of these are a little bit more sensible. Yeah, okay, so there you go. Sin After Sin has got a bonus track, Jawbreaker Live, from Defenders of the Faith, which is like completely nothing to do with that album in the catalogue at all. Now, I can kind of understand this if they were going for people only buying one album and then maybe a couple of tracks on the album to go and listen to something else by Priest. Okay, but in this setting, the fact that it's a box set and to have two songs that have got completely nothing to do with Ram It Down makes completely no sense to me. Anyway, rant over from that. So this album starts off with Ram It Down, the title track, and immediately, even if you were coming into this not knowing what this album would deliver from Turbo, from pretty much the first note here, this sets out the stall straight away. Turbo Lover's got quite a slow build-up. This bang gets straight to it with the heaviness and mostly the speed. I would say that some of this album is almost like speed metal because although Turbo is quite synthy, it's still quite heavy, I think, at least Turbo Lover. This one is very fast, and I've always thought Ram It Down itself was a decent track. Like it, but don't love it. Heavy Metal isn't great at all. I don't like the sound of it, the vocal, the drum sound. I think the drum sound really on a lot of this album is a problem. And learning from this book, which I use more of as a reference book rather than reading the whole way through, which is Judas Priest Turbo Till Now from Martin Popov. In this book, it's said that pretty much all of this album is drum machines, so there's no drums being played. And I find that listening to this and trying to listen for the drums, it's a very harsh sound. and it doesn't really gel with my ears, at least. I don't like the sound of this song. The chorus of heavy metal, what do you want? No, it's hardly inspiring, unfortunately, and it's a long track too, at nearly 6 minutes. Love Zone, the start of this song, I'm kind of half expecting Pat Benatar's Love is a Battlefield to come in. That might just be me, but the first seconds I'm thinking, is Pat Benatar going to make an appearance here somewhere? Yeah, I can't connect to this one either. It's an improvement on heavy metal, but yeah, at least it has some groove to it, but it's kind of a meh song. Come and Get It, actually, the fourth song is okay. It's more straightforward, and you might say, well, you've just criticised them for being a bit more commercial, but I think this one's okay. It's a lower tempo to the first three songs. It's more heavy, but there's less speed, and it sounds more melodic, at least to my ears. And there's some anger, particularly in the chorus, so I do like the vocal on this one, and I'll talk a little bit later about trying to connect these songs and the emotion to it with Blood Red Skies. Hard as Iron is a much quicker tempo than the previous track, which kind of means this record is a little bit uneven. You don't really know what you're going to get. At least with Turbo, it felt like the sequencing to these tracks was quite good, but it is a bit all over the shop, I think, on Ram It Down. Blood Red Skies, when I first revisited this again, I thought, okay, I don't know a lot about this track. I thought, this is interesting, as it kind of comes in as a ballad and then starts to get a little bit quicker with the synthy sound. I thought, okay, this is interesting. This is probably closer to the Turbo album, but you know what? It doesn't do a lot for me. The lyrical content, I'm not feeling it, and a lot of music for me is about feeling, whether it's the lyrics or whether it is the music. It's all about feeling, whether it's the aggression of heavy metal or the emotiveness. It's not here, and comparing this to other things in the Priest catalogue, at least the ballads, the slower songs, Out in the Cold from the previous album, Turbo, is really good. A Touch of Evil, the ballady, slower type song from Painkiller's really good. And again, there's the kind of the aggression of the guitars and the drum sounds. And then even before this in the catalogue, I've talked about Before the Dawn from Killing Machine. There's that real emotiveness to the lyrics. Here, I'm not really sure what Rob's on about, and it's kind of You Won't Take Me Under Blood Red Skies, and I'm kind of, not really connecting to this. I mean, even Love Bites from Defenders of the Faith is probably better than this, I would say. Maybe it might be wrong to go, well, this isn't as good as what else in the catalogue. But what I'm trying to convey by saying this is that this is a clear step down from other things in the Priest catalogue. And something like Love Bites, I like Love Bites, but I don't love it. And I like this one even less. Maybe I might come round with more listening, but yeah, not quite, unfortunately. I'm a Rocker. Unfortunately, not the Bruce Springsteen track from The River, which is great. Far from it. This one feels to me, and actually this is quite true for the rest of the album now. So you've got I'm a Rocker, the cover of Johnny Be Good, Love You to Death, and Monsters of Rock. These last tracks very much feel like leftover songs from Turbo, or outtake songs, because I don't think this record ends well at all. It's certainly not the speed metal from side one. It's slower, but it's unmemorable. Johnny Be Good, this was really lambasted at the time. You know, how can Priest do a cover of Johnny Be Good? It's kind of one of those songs, how can anybody do a cover of Johnny Be Good? You know, it's there. The Chuck Berry version is pretty much the essential version. Has anybody really got to change that? And I think reading something from Rob that this was recorded possibly for a film or TV adaptation, and actually the band were quite surprised that this ended up on the album. So was this a band choice? But nevertheless, this is on the album, so I've still got to talk about it. It's not detestable, I don't think it's terrible, but it's not great either. And one thing I would say is that it goes on too long as well. It's 4.5 minutes long. I think the original is probably 2-3 minutes, I would guess. Doesn't need to be any longer than that. Love You to Death. The drum sound particularly is harsh for me, and the whole sound of it doesn't quite click. Do I like the kind of whips and chains thing at the end of the song? Maybe. But just doesn't get me in the feels, as people would say, this album. Unfortunately, it's not emotive like a lot of other things in the Priest catalogue. And then the last track, Monsters of Rock. Well, I'm from near the Black Country, so when it come out with the Black Country name check, way, get in the Black Country. But that's about as good as this track gets for me. It's a slow, moody track, the Monsters of Rock. Yeah. It's a slow, moody track that doesn't really go anywhere. So can you tell from my brief summary of those 10 tracks that this hasn't been the rediscovery of Ram It Down that perhaps I wanted? Yeah, it hasn't. That is unfortunate. And I'm getting a bit of I call it a reputation now. I don't really want to have that, of talking about albums that I'm not fond of. But you know what? This isn't a bashful hating video. This is just my opinion. I'm not going, this album's terrible and you mustn't listen to it. But it's interesting to talk about this in the context of the Judas Priest catalogue. I think you would probably appreciate something like Painkiller more, because you've had to go through Ram It Down to experience Painkiller. I mean, sure, wouldn't it be better if you had killer album after killer album after killer album? That's all that anybody wants with any band, isn't it? But I think to see the highs and the lows of a band is very, very interesting. There are certainly a couple of decent tracks on this album that I touched on. I think the title track's decent, Come and Get It's decent, Hard as Iron's decent. But would I put them on any Best of Judas Priest compilation? No, probably not. So I think this album will go away again, and it won't be one that I visit that much. But you know what? I'm genuinely pleased that I've gone and listened to this over the last week. I ummed and ahed and kind of procrastinated on this, thinking, well, shall I listen to it a few more times and see if I can not force myself to like it, but hopefully after a couple of more listens I will like it. And I thought, no, I've just got to react to what I see. I've spent quite a lot of time with this album over the last week, and I wouldn't say I wasn't enjoying myself, but I thought, there's that much music out there, and to keep listening to this when I'm not really getting much from it, maybe I should move away. But very much the positive message of this, it was going to be a double header, but I wanted to focus more on Ram It Down, is that this album, Turbo, is great. Really, really like Turbo. What are my favourite songs from Turbo? I've talked about Turbo Lover. I really like Locked In. The Ballad Out in the Cold's good, but if I was to go with the top three, Turbo Lover, Locked In, and maybe it would be Out in the Cold. It's not a perfect record. I think it is front-loaded. I think the first side, Turbo Lover, Locked In, Private Property, Parental Guidance, is probably better because it starts to get a bit more commercial with Rock You All Around the World, but I'm okay with that. The second half of the album I don't think is as good as the first half, but I think there's a lot more for me to get from this than there is from Ram It Down. But I think this is possibly the start of me going to rediscover a bit of this catalogue. I'm very confident with some of the 70s stuff, Sin After Sin, Stained Class, Killing Machine. I don't think I need to hear that all that much now to kind of refurnish my confidence and awareness of these albums. But I think the 80s, the 90s, I have actually had for Christmas, because I still haven't listened to this yet, but I thought I'll have it for Christmas, is the band's latest album, Invincible Shield. I went to see them on the Invincible Shield tour, and I was actually left a little bit disappointed. You know, just as a bit of an aside to this video about Ram It Down, I wanted to go and see The Priest. I saw the release of the tour come out. I think it was 2024, wasn't it? It was 2 years ago. And it was one of those, as usual, that came out, the tickets came out for the tour on the middle of the morning. I was at work and my dad went to book them, and I said, look, I'll pay a couple of £100 to go and see The Priest, because there are so many bands, I've touched on this before, so many artists that either I haven't been to see that I can't go and see because unfortunately they're no longer with us, or they've retired from touring, or they're just not touring at all. I said, no, this is one of the bands that I really, really like. I really want to go and see The Priest. So I'll happily pay to go and see them. And the tickets actually were a lot cheaper than that. I think it was £60 or £70, which I think is pretty fair game to go and see a band like Priest these days. And I don't know if it was because actually both me and my dad weren't feeling the best that night. I'd got a bit of a virus, a bit of a cold. My dad had got a bit of a head cold as well. And I don't think heavy metal's exactly the best cure for that. We both came away with absolutely pounding headaches. But I don't think I saw Judas Priest maybe at the best time. Unfortunately, I think Rob's too far gone now for tracks like Painkiller, and it wasn't the best show I'd seen. One positive is that it's actually a triple header, so there was Uriah Heep playing there. Don't know a lot about Heep, and Saxon, and I don't know a lot about Saxon. I know a few of their tracks, and we got in just as Saxon were coming on, and you know what? I really enjoyed Saxon's set, which has made me go and listen to a little bit more of Saxon, but not a lot of them. I think that's possibly a group that is certainly on my kind of to listen to list. Not quite got there yet, but I maybe want to get some of their albums before listening to their catalogue. But really enjoyed the Saxon set, but I wasn't too enamoured by the Priest set, so maybe that's kind of turned me off the Priest a little bit in the last few years, to kind of go, I wasn't that enamoured with their live set. Whereas in comparison, I really got into the Scorpions a few years ago and went to see them, I think actually the same year, 2024, at Wembley, and that concert was great. So all of my experiences with Scorpions have been really good, but maybe not so with Judas Priest. So possibly not the best album to choose, Ram It Down, to get back into the Priest. But as I said before, Turbo was the one I listened to first off, before then thinking, well, maybe I should go and listen to Ram It Down, because that's a very different record to Turbo, and this video could have been something about, well, Turbo sounds like this and Ram It Down sounds like this, and the two albums are very different, when of course they could have been packaged as one. But I thought, no, let's talk about Ram It Down. So I hope you've enjoyed this discussion of Ram It Down. We are available as an audio podcast on podcast platforms such as Spotify and Apple Podcasts. I think because I upload this to Spotify, it pretty much goes out to anywhere that you can find podcasts. Of course, all the videos are available on the YouTube channel. So if you did enjoy this and would like to see future content from me, I'd really appreciate it if you can hit that subscribe button. And if you hit the notification bell, you'll get notifications whenever my content comes out. But we're also available, as you'll see on the bottom of this video as well, if you're watching on YouTube, on a lot of the social media platforms. And if you can go and follow us over there, that would be appreciated as well. YouTube's a little bit of a different beast to what it was. It's actually changed again today from previous, because I still use my subscription feed a lot. However, this is something that a lot of people don't use anymore. The subscriptions feed's now changed to have the most relevant videos at the top of that feed. So even that feed's becoming a little bit of a recommended feed now. So I think that stuff like hitting the notification bell is really important to find out when my videos get uploaded. If of course you want to see my videos more, if this is your first and only journey to Toby Jones Talks Music, well, I hope you've had a good time. But the social media channels, the design of that, Facebook, Instagram and X, I put a post on those platforms every time I upload a new video, so at least you can see that there's new content out there. And if you think, oh, I might want to watch that, then you can go over to YouTube, go over to the channel, either watch it at that point or pop it in your watch later list, and then you can watch it at a time that is suitable for you. But of course, we're available on the audio platforms as well, so you can listen to the show when you are out and about. That's all the self-promo nonsense done. Really enjoyed this. I hope you have too. And please, if you have an opinion on this album, get involved down below. I always say this whenever I do something that's not so positive. There's always going to be somebody out there who loves the album that I'm referencing. And you know what? That's absolutely great. That is brilliant, because music is all about enjoyment. And if I can't find enjoyment in this album, if you can, please tell me what I'm missing about this album. Maybe I might be listening out for the wrong thing. All this online community is all about sharing the music, sharing the love, sharing the passion that I have for music, and that's exactly what I do around here. But I guess you have to take the rough with the smooth. Maybe one day I might be talking about, finally, an album that I really, really love. But hopefully there's been a little bit of that sprinkled into today's video with some of the 70s and Painkiller and etc. Those releases from Judas Priest. Anyway, that's going to be it for today's video before I ramble on for too long. If you want to continue your journey here at Toby Jones Talks Music on the YouTube side, there'll be a video up here that you can go and watch, and that's been selected especially for you, so hopefully that aligns with your taste. Remember to subscribe down below, like the video and all that good stuff, and leave a comment if you have an opinion about Ram It Down. All that's left to say is that I hope you have a good rest of your day. Put those Priest albums on, rock on with the metal gods, and hopefully I'll see you around here for a video in the future. Thank you very much for your company.